My name is Diana Opoti. I'm a fashion entrepreneur. I promote African fashion, so I do that in different ways. We have a store called Designing Africa Collective at the Village Market. I also do fashion PR consultancy for brands trying to establish themselves in the market or just to create a new, introduce a new product into the market. But I also connect with the consumers through my personal style, so that's what people see on social media. But I am a fashion professional, TV producer, and now a fashion entrepreneur. A few years ago, 2012, I started a TV program called Designing Africa, and I traveled across the continent to interview designers. 2 years into that, I realized that because our show was distributed on paid for TV, which was Mnet, we realized that not so many people still had access to the designers. So the whole purpose of the show was to create visibility for brands. And then putting it on satellite TV meant that you're still restricting who could access it, because I was paid for channel distribution. And so I decided to take it to the social media platform, and through a campaign called 100 Days of African Fashion, I styled different brands in my own way. So it was almost like a personal style diary on social media. But because we programmed it as a campaign, it took off. We wore a lot of brands. I wore a lot of brands from across the continent, and I was picked up. New African, because of the work that I was doing, the New African magazine listed me as one of the most influential Africans in 2014. And then that sort of put me in a place of responsibility, because New African is a political business magazine. The president of Kenya was on that list. People I respect, such as Tabitha Karanja, was also on the list. So I felt that I had to do more beyond just my personal style. And so Diana Opoti PR was born, which was a PR consultancy to help brands sort of figure out new markets in the continent. I gave advice to different brands. We did pop-ups in the country, and following that and the demand for products, we then started to see, if we opened shop, where would that be? And then that's where Designing Africa Collective, the store, came to be, and that's where we are now. My brand has always been positioned for a Pan-African audience, because I feel that the percentage of people who buy designer brands across the continent would be very little, the percentage, because designer brands are quite expensive. You're talking about clothes that range from 10,000 shillings upwards. So we felt that different markets had little opportunity to really grow in a way that a designer could say that design was sustainable for them. And so that was the original business model, to create novelty products, to start to explore how we can sell, say, a Nigerian brand in Kenya, how you can sell a Ghanaian brand in Kenya, Ugandan, etc. So that really is, that was the motivation for the store, and that's why it's called Designing Africa Collective. Also, because Nairobi is a very cosmopolitan place, we felt that there would be a wider audience beyond just Kenyan consumers, and so that was the motivation for us. So we try to have a balance of more accessible pieces and a few more luxury brands. So from Nigeria, we have Tiffany Amber, we have a Ghanaian brand called Axe, I'm wearing a Kenyan designer called Akulo. We've also carried a very respected and renowned luxury designer in Kenya called Akinyo Dongo. So we carry different brands. We have a cross-section from scarves to jewelry and accessories. Designing Africa Collective for us is a store to everyone else, but for us we look at it as a platform to start the conversations around why African fashion is not sustainable. Is it inter-country trade that's difficult? Are we challenging the custom costs? Is that, for example? Is there a diversity in African fashion and its expression? So those are some of the conversations that we see. Fashion Focus is a project of Lagos Fashion Week, which is aimed at creating dialogue between established designers or people in the creative or design world with a younger generation, and it will then follow a selection of 5 designers from across the continent now, who will then take part in an incubation series and probably win an award at the end of it to help set up their businesses. So for us to have hosted it in Nairobi was important for us, given that Nairobi has such a growing fashion community, you know, young designers, and so that also for them to see that it's possible to be more than just, to exist in more than just their country, to borrow best practice from a country like Nigeria that has really pioneered in the fashion space. I think that for us is a very great honor. It was very well attended. We had about 150 young designers and people in the creative industry, in the fashion creative industry showing up. And so that was a really big deal. The founder of Lagos Fashion Week, who's done so much work across just from a fashion platform, from the many projects that she's running as well. She was in attendance. Orange Culture, who's a young designer of note who has also been through the same program, was also in attendance. And Sunny Dollars from Kenya, whose company helps fund young fashion businesses and give them mentorship and talks and give them access to financial advice as well, was in attendance. So for us, as panel speakers, and so for us that was really, really huge. When I started 100 Days of African Fashion, I didn't know it would become that big. I was doing it as a personal style diary. It wasn't about being best dressed. It was just to show people how much variety there was in the industry. And yeah, because everyone, I feel like for me the biggest problem was people used to think African fashion is just Ankara or African fashion, and there's so many conversations around it, right? So designers who were making clothes with more contemporary Western textiles, they didn't really feel represented. So it was just genuinely a feel-good campaign, but then it exploded. We got so much press out of it. You know, for me, I've always been very strategic in the sense that I drive my own agenda. We had a TV show before 100 Days, but then people started referencing me as a blogger. And I think, in a way, it really took away a lot of the TV work and my previous roles. And so for me, I think I was more driven to create a fulfillment of the campaign. So people wanted the product, so where could they get them? So fine, I'm wearing these pieces, but where can you get them, right? So we started to find and think of strategies that would help sort of create a more stable solution. The pop-ups that we did, which is basically temporary little shops. So we'd go to Zen Garden and say we'd feature designer X. And so that, for me, I felt worked, but then it wasn't sustainable. It wasn't permanent. People kept writing to us after a designer had left the country. So I think that 100 Days really started a conversation around how can we make fashion more accessible, and in what way would be the best. Would it be an online platform, which a lot of people were encouraging us to do because it would be little investment to the time that we made the actual decision to set up shop. So I feel like that for me is, it came full circle in that way. So I'm actually a TV professional. I'm a journalist first, and I trained in communications in Daystar, and then I started out as a TV presenter, and then trained as a producer. I went to Mediva. I worked in different productions. I've worked under the Patricia Show on Mnet. I was the series producer for Mashariki Mix on Mnet as well. And before that, I'd hosted shows on Citizen and other channels, right? So I feel for me that because I was always very hungry to tell stories, and my decision to pursue fashion as a main genre has sort of helped evolve my career the last 7 years. So in 2012, I started a TV series called Designing Africa, where I traveled across the continent as a producer and a host, interviewing different designers. Following that, I did this digital campaign. So then we're now playing around with how do you take content onto the digital space. So the digital campaign became popular. It was funded, so we did events around it. And then following that, the Diana Opoti PR consultancy was, I think, most communication and TV professionals will do very well for in different areas. So if you're a political journalist, you could do image consulting and PR for that industry. So for us, it was a natural progression, and I feel that my brand has evolved consistently. So from the TV to, we're just telling stories really, and now we balance all those. The store allows us to offer PR and consultancy to brands that we carry in the store or brands that want to be with us for a short period of time. So I find that the different disciplines that I've sort of honed in the industry have helped balance out. I think they complement each other for the work that we do now. I think people look at fashion as one big thing, but there's so many little divisions of fashion. You could do designer competitions, there could be personal style shows, there could be wardrobe makeovers. I feel like there's no industry, there's no country that doesn't have enough for fashion media to exist. And I think that different professionals will just take on different things. For me, my method was more conversations with designers, because the business aspect of fashion and the narratives behind what makes it a successful business, those things were important to me. Other people like the drama that reality shows have. I'm absolutely not interested in designers crying and rushing to finish or complete a task in 24 hours. But I feel like there's enough space depending on what emotion you're trying to satisfy for your audience. I think that a lot of people assume that fashion is easy. They see what we look at, how we look now. They want to see how you're dressed. They imagine that it costs nothing in terms of time, tears, labor. Very few people have an understanding that it's actually one of the hardest industries to exist in. It's painful, it's emotionally trying, because there's always competition, whose clothes look better, which celebrity is wearing what, are you the right size? So I feel that across the board, fashion is a very challenging industry, but people see it for the fun that they experience. They don't see the work that goes behind creating that experience for people. The other thing is, I think a lot of conversations that could start to make some of the industries in fashion a lot more successful. There's the whole modeling industry and how to stratify it across commercials, runway, how to pay models fairly, how to standardize rates for the creative class photographers. So I think that fashion is a great driver for those conversations. But yes, and I feel that there's a lot of assumptions behind how easy and fun it is. I know that you start a journey and suddenly you have to be she-boss, suddenly you have to be woman in business, you have to be the most successful person. I think for us, I think the store was good for me and my team in terms of us really seeing what we can do for the industry beyond running a sustainable business. And we've sort of made a decision that yes, we want to work with young people. We want to create a lifestyle concept that would be interesting in terms of how people experience African fashion. So the store is a multi-brand store, also multidisciplinary in the design space. So we sell jewelry, clothes, but also furniture, home accents and decor, but also from a very high lifestyle space, right? So for us, it's important to look at the younger generation. So my team is all between 23 and 26 years old, the whole team, and we have a mixture of creatives, models, and just people who are passionate about the fashion industry, but giving them a stable income. So, and they can still pursue their modeling interests, but still work within a structured business environment that pays regularly. So for me, I felt that the education of a younger generation would be the burden that I carried. We've done a different project that happens every year. It's called the Young Designers Kenya. So last year we took 5 designers through an incubation process, allowing them access to mentors and our contacts, right? And any opportunity that we have, we try to see how we can open up conversations between the older designers and a younger group. We're also starting a private label that is led by a young designer who is trained for the store. So For me, I think it was important that within what we could do while running a business, how could we complement or mentor a younger generation within a proper framework. There were 5 young designers who've continued to pursue it, but then it's also raised a whole conversation around skills training, but is the market ready to absorb trained designers beyond, because it's really difficult for a designer to run her own business, right? So one of the people to look at maybe would be Chris Njoki of Icon, there's Terry Jonyo of Janakis as well, but I feel that the program raised a lot of conversation around what next. Will the workforce absorb them? Will companies be interested in hiring designers as opposed to importing to fill their stores? So yeah, I think it's a conversation that's challenged how we would do the second season. Is it enough just to train and let them go, or do they win something to help sort of jumpstart a fashion business for themselves? So Designing Africa Collective comprises of a young team. So Liz Mado, for instance, is a blogger. I met her as a blogger, and after working with her for a couple of months, I saw that she's really strong in organization and administration, over and above her fashion style. So we brought her on board, so she heads up the whole store and manages a portfolio of around 40 different designers. That includes sourcing, it includes reporting back to the designers, so that's Liz. And then we've got Gabu, who is a model. He's actually a professional model, and he's a retail associate with us, a senior retail associate. So is Nelvin and Alex. So we've got young professional models who, in between their modeling assignments, lend their creativity, photography, and styling expertise to the store. A lot of market strategy went into where we chose to open our business. I couldn't see another place better than the village market for me, given the kind of product that we have and the kind of clientele we're appealing to. I think it's just the challenges of having a team, and a creative team at that, and balancing between responsibilities and the creative work and deadlines and that kind of thing. So there's that as one component of business, and especially in an environment where we don't really have a lot to borrow from in terms of best practice for a store like ours. The other thing that's really challenging is the realization that social media is great, but it doesn't always convert back to business. The generation or the age group that's really active on social media, who can make anything go viral, is not necessarily spending at the price points that the store is positioned for. So it's trying to find a balance between how not to lose out in that very critical audience and how to still make your margins to stay profitable and stay above water. So I think it's a mixture of learning the business environment, how retail works, sourcing, going through all the challenges that come with all the challenges that come with running a business in a structured and professional way. Those have been our challenges, but I'm not sure yet that we've wanted to quit. A lot of what we've done have been we've learned from experience, and we're very quick to adapt. We talk about a lot of challenges that we have as they come. We try to see how to reduce costs while still working with people. We've tried to see how to balance between, well, being a brick and mortar store, but also how we can sell on the social space. So I find that, yes, we learn a lot as we go along, and that's been really useful for us in terms of being able to adapt quickly to anything that changes or challenges that we face. Well, I think that question about evolution of businesses is a little bit tough, because we're really doing a lot in terms of even more than what other people are doing. And I feel that for me at the minute it's retail. Sometimes expanding a product portfolio is huge. Looking at a new market where we'll probably have pop-ups in Lagos and Johannesburg in the next calendar year. We're looking at New York as well. So I feel that I think retail is huge, yeah, for us. So I feel like balancing between the TV format we're creating for the online channel as well as the store, and seeing where that goes in the next 2 years. Last year, I was nominated as one of the most influential people in the world's fashion by the Business of Fashion, so that was Business of Fashion 500. I think for me that, especially because all my work is really centered on the continent, I think that for me was the biggest highlight of my career. In 2014, being listed as one of Africa's most influential 100 people in the year, that was also really big. But other than those accolades, it's really important for me that there's been such an evolution of how local consumers, how Kenyans are responding to design. And just watching the industry, not just work that I've done, but other players such as Cornell Watch, Sunny Dollar, the work that other players in the industry have done to just create more awareness, and how Kenyans are responding to buying local. That for me is could be a highlight or a fulfillment in terms of what we're doing. I think partnerships in the African fashion space are really important, because then we start to realize that we're all facing the same challenges and we try to form solutions, right? I think partnerships also open up designers to new markets. Sometimes your brand's a little jaded at home, or you're not sure how to break into a more successful network of designers or get new clientele. So I think it also brings a burst of newness to a brand. I think for us, the partnerships that we form with people really help open up our eyes in terms of the real challenges that we might not be seeing that other people are facing. Still, I'd say partnerships are important if you align yourselves so that everyone's complementing. I think sometimes it's really difficult because people feel that, oh, I want to do a fashion week, but this person is also doing a fashion week. Or perhaps you feel threatened because another person has a business. And I think I was having a conversation with a few other people who have multi-brand stores, even Annabelle and Yango. And we realized that there might be a need for people to sit down and really have the conversation around how can consignment actually work. When retailers are not able to buy product upfront, what challenges do both we might seem as we both have retail businesses, but what best practices could we follow? What terms do we ask from designers? What's an acceptable margin for your business to then stay profitable? Should designers pay to be in a store? So I think that even when you feel that there could be competition, sometimes partnering and having open dialogue could really help grow a business. For me, the perfect fashion industry would first of all be a fashion council that unifies designers. Secondly, it would be really important for us to start to form a fashion calendar of sorts to help inform both the general public and designers when collections should come, because then you're able to sort of predict or work within a structure for fashion businesses. When do collections come out? Right now in the cold season, but everyone argues that we don't have winter and summer, but this is the coldest, and it just goes on for like 5 months. Imagine how much you would make if you foresee to create winter collections, right? So I feel that an ideal fashion industry would be one that acknowledges what the retail patterns would be like, one that has a fashion council that would speak on behalf of designers in terms of funding, production, just addressing the issues that the fashion industry suffers from. And yeah, just more awareness from consumers about the importance of supporting local businesses and local design. When I'm not at work, I love to cook, and I think I'm really interested in interior spaces. I like to create little spaces. So those are the two things that I think very little. I mean, very few people know about me. I think people think I'm unapproachable. They think I'm really tough. And while those things are true, I'm also really, I'm logical. So I like to create solutions around problems. So, but yeah, I think people think I'm a lot tougher than